Good afternoon, and welcome to another of Sawtooth Solutions' ongoing series of educational webinars. My name is Scott Grayson, and I'm Vice President of Sawtooth Solutions. As most of you know, our firm is a turnkey asset management program with over $20 billion in assets and under management and advisement. Our platform empowers advisors to provide unified managed account solutions addressing a myriad of client situations. These solutions can be customized with enhanced tax management, sustainable investment screens, annuity-based longevity solutions, and/or direct indices. Rest assured that all the third-party investment solutions available on our platform have been reviewed and curated by our investment, research, and due diligence team. Now, before I introduce our guest today, there are a few housekeeping items. First, today's presentation is intended for advisor use only. Second, if you have any questions, please use the chat box to type those in, and we'll get to as many as we can during the Q&A at the end of the presentation. Next, there is no need to take notes. Today's webinar is being recorded, and you will be receiving an email with a link to that recording within 24 hours. Lastly, this webinar has been approved by the Investments and Wealth Institute for 1 hour of CE credit towards the CIMA, CPWA, CIMC, and RMA certifications. In order to get CE credit, you'll need to log in to your Investments and Wealth Institute account, and you'll need to add the course for review and approval. But today's webinar is being presented by Aristotle Capital Management, LLC. Aristotle is an employee-owned investment management organization that collectively manages $60 billion in AUM and specializes in equity and fixed income strategies ranging from small to large cap, domestic, international, global equity strategies, to ESG high yield investment grade fixed income strategies. Now it is my pleasure to introduce Patrick Schussman, Head of Advisory Distribution at Aristotle Capital Management. Patrick has devoted the majority of his career to helping advisors grow their fee-based business and transitioning accounts from brokerage to advisory. Patrick is a frequent lecturer at industry conferences on topics from institutional trends to advisory best practices. Patrick, the floor is yours.
So a number of years ago, I was at a large advisor conference chatting at cocktails after these daytime sessions with Laura from Westlake. And she's part of a team that was in the process of converting a large portion of their business from commission-based model to a fee-based advisory practice. And I asked her how that process was going. And she said, well, we're really struggling with the fee conversations. In fact, it's a challenge every time. And I'm not sure what to do about it. Can you help? And I said, I don't know if I can, but tell me what you're doing. And she said, well, when we get to the portion of the conversation where we're talking about the fees, I say to them, we charge X, and that covers the cost of the transactions, and we give away our advice for free. Okay. Maybe I can help, but let's try turning this on our head. And so I asked her a couple of questions. I said, well, what do you think is the single most commoditized aspect in our business over the past decade? What is the one thing that has gone from having value to having almost no value, and in some cases, zero value whatsoever? And if that's, of course, the transaction cost, the transaction. Okay, then what is the one thing that you and only you possess that you can offer your clients? Right? What is the one thing no one else has that you have? And that would be you. So think about how when things are assigned when things are given away for free, they're really assigned little or no value. It's human nature. So why would we give away the one thing that we have that is of the most value? And why would we essentially assign the greatest value to the one thing that really has no value, right? So let's try this instead. How about our advice and services cost X and we give away the transactions for free? Light bulb. Now, this might seem really self-evident to all of us, but it's illustrative of, I think, one of the things that we've learned and academic research supports that so many of us struggle with, which are things between our ears that cloud our ability to be focused and have conviction and compelling messages when we're talking with our clients about fees. So hello again, I'm Patrick Schussman, I'm Managing Director at Aristotle, and I've spent the majority of my career working with advisors from those in their first year to Barron's top 20 teams on a variety of different fee-based advisory aspects, but helping them essentially grow and build sustainable advisory practices that generate referrals. The purpose of this session is to kind of thinking about and relying on academic research, best practices from top advisors, much of our collective experiences, is to roll all that into focusing on how we can improve our skills around our pricing conversations. Key to that will be grasping the keys to confidence and conviction. We're going to get clarity around what is it we do for the fees that we charge. We're going to take ownership of those services that we offer. And then we're going to share a number of other best practices around pricing and related to pricing. My goal and hope for the session is that each and every one of you take away maybe just one nugget that you can apply in your practice in a sustainable way that will help improve your pricing conversations. Now, much of the struggle I think that many of us have, and Laura's no exception, around fee conversations and lacking conviction and confidence in them comes from just the tremendous agitation and that's caused by all the disruption in our industry the last decade. It's been tremendous, and that's probably a pretty significant understatement. And it's not just in our industry. I mean, I can give you a great example. Just looking at my personal life, these are my 3 beautiful children from my ex-wife. Yes, I got it wrong the first time, but about 7 years ago, I married an absolutely amazing woman, and then boom, this came along. So that's Winston Alexander Schussman. He came complete with iPhone 6. Yes, I have a barbell strategy, you could say, but it's not just the magnitude of change; it's the pace of change. So here's Winston, looking like this, and then you go to bed and you wake up, and on the left-hand side, follow along with me, he's just a baby playing on the play equipment. The next day, he's rooting for the home team. Go Dodgers. In the blink of an eye, he's dropping into the pocket to hit a wide receiver long. And then you go to sleep and you wake up and he's stolen the keys to the car. And then he gets practical and he starts, taking pride in his ride. He's wrenching on the scooter. But before you know it, in a frightening, moment of advancement, suddenly he's going one-handed on the Harley and inking a deal with Chelsea. So just the incredible amount of magnitude and pace in our personal lives. You can relate that to our industry. And just when you think everything is stable, 7 months ago, this comes along. There's Gregory Dimitri Schussman, AKA Jimmy. And, maybe you think you can handle it because they seem to be getting along just great. And you get up and you go to work, or you go down to the garage and you realize that Jimmy's taking the keys to your other car and you've got no wheels anymore. So I digress. But coming back to our industry, just think about the incredible amount of change, the massive amount of information that's available to clients today, that as a result, the increased sophistication of our clients around investment topics, the tremendous amount of product innovation that's taken place. Scott mentioned direct indexing. Think about ETFs, non-transparent ETFs, quantitative indexing, so much robo-advisors, so much disruption. Constant head fakes and uncertainty around the DOL and the SEC as it relates to fiduciary standards and that moving target. And all of this has created an environment where we are concerned and agitated, such that a lot of us feel like fees have become, front and center in clients' minds. So much so that I talk to advisors who actually think that fees and the level of fees are determinants of clients' decision-making around hiring us and firing us. So much so that, they actually think that their conversations with with clients and prospects are going to maybe end up like this. They think all clients are thinking about, give me the lowest fee. But the reality is the evidence simply doesn't support that. And I'm going to share with you 4 different studies. A couple of them are a little bit dated, but the points that they illustrate are so instructive to this and understanding what is and what isn't really driving our client decision-making around our practices. This study from State Street Global Advisors focused on the most important attributes in the selection of advisors. It was a survey of affluent investors. What do clients look for when they hire you? And hands down, by far, number 1, not fees, but trust and trustworthiness. Fees, as you can see on the slide, number 5. So in an updated study by Qualtrics, they found as well the number 1 reason why clients hire their financial advisor: trust, because they trusted them. I would look also at items 2 and 3, and I would argue that those are pretty much the same. 67%, that's 39 and 28. Those are two things: personalized service, customer service. That's the same thing. They probably shouldn't have been independent and discrete on the survey. They really represent a controllable item in your service model and can result, therefore, in clients having a really strong relationship of trust with you. I would argue that if you are managing or seeking to manage high quality, high touch relationships that are based on trust and backed by a disciplined client service model, you put yourself in the best position to win and to be that one selected by prospects today. What about on the flip side when clients fire us? What are the reasons why we sometimes lose clients? Studies show that advisors across the industry lose about 10% of their clients a year. That's really meaningful to us. We've got to constantly replace that if we're in that camp. Top reasons why: relationship with another advisor, number one; unhappy with advisor interactions, number two; unhappy with service. I would argue those top three are pretty much all related. 2 and 3 are pretty much the same. And if you're managing those well and not poorly, your client isn't drifting out and finding and developing another relationship with another advisor because they have no real reason to do that. In an updated study, Cerulli found that as a percentage of clients that say they fire their advisor because of fees, the results were lowest at the wirehouses and highest at the independent broker dealers. Why is that? They went on and did more research and came back and concluded that in the independent broker dealer space, in their opinion, they found those advisors tended to struggle the most with the messaging around the value of their services. And hence today's topic, such a critical topic. In a similar study by Qualtrics, they found something a little bit different. And I'm going to draw your attention to this because you might look at this and say, oh, there you go. Fees really are the number one reason why clients leave us. But if you look at items 2 and 3, poor customer service and lack of personal attention, in my opinion, poorly structured, pretty much the same, really together represent 20%, would have been number one. So you might say, okay, Patrick, that's great, but still number 2 reason why is fees. Then that means that they really are firing us over fees. Well, the authors actually went on and did more exhaustive study and came back with a conclusion that it's the classic fees are an issue only in the absence of value. And they said, quote, in this study, it's not until clients feel that they've been treated unfairly that they leave. For clients who leave due to fees, it loops back to trust that the advisor is doing right by them. Where have we heard that before? Trust. But none of this means that fees aren't important. They absolutely are. In fact, across the industry, I imagine some of you are 100% or as close as you can to a robust fee-based advisory model. Some of you may not be and may be aspiring to that. Industry-wide, there's continued significant adoption by clients of the fee-based advisory construct with their advisor, up from roughly 50% of advisor revenue 5 years ago to over 2/3, pushing up to 3/4 today. And when asked in a very recently released study by IWI, who are the ones behind the CIMA designation, which I imagine some of you have, they wanted to understand what are clients thinking about today, looking back over the last 3 years. They asked advisors, what's the number one change in client questions or client requests or client inquiries from 3 years ago? And overall, advisors said the number one was they expect me to ask more questions and be between meetings more often. But see, number 2, clients scrutinize and ask about fees, pricing, and the cost of doing business with me more often. That's the number 2 thing that is increased over the last 3 years, according to the advisors who were surveyed. So what does that mean? What it doesn't mean is that clients are firing advisors based on fees, but what it does mean is that fees are important. And it puts even more emphasis on the importance of us being able to have confidence and conviction in our fee messaging, which is where we're going to focus. So when scrutinized and asked about pricing, I find that some advisors think that the right way to go about the solution is simply to cut fees to maintain business, but the evidence proves otherwise. So Boston Consulting Group did a study of this and determined that cutting fees actually does not lead to stickier clients and stickier assets. Does not. But the thing that does, they found in their research, is highly personalized relationships. Ding. So here we are back to high quality, high touch relationships based on trust and backed by a disciplined client service model. If we follow those, we put ourselves in the best position to maintain and retain our clients and build and grow with them over time, as well as put ourselves in the best position to be that advisor selected when it comes time to have an opportunity for a new client. So how do we solve some of these disconnects that we're talking about? How do we get on the same page on all of this? How do we sort of change our thinking so that we can build a better construct for fee conversations? Sometimes I think some of us, like Laura did in my opening story, some of us need what I would call an aha moment, right? Something that's a catalyst, the light bulb. So here's another example of an aha moment. Once again, here we are at a top advisor large conference. We're at cocktails. All the best conversations seem to always come at these. So I really look forward to when we can do those again in person. I'm excited that there are a number of them on the calendar for the fall, and I hope that all of you are as well. I think there's just tremendous amount of knowledge and learning available for us at these events, and in particular at the cocktail hours where we learn from each other. And this is one of those examples. So this was at an event where there had been a top advisor from the Northwest. His name is Rick, and he was up on a panel. And the panel consisted of advisors who had substantially converted their commission-based practices to fee-based over the past number of years, and they were sharing their experiences. And Rick's focus was around fees and the level of fees and fee conversations. So here we are after the event. We're at cocktails, and I'm standing talking to someone, and next to me I see out of the corner of my eye, I see Rick, who was our panelist, and approaching him is Paul from San Diego, who I also know. And I kind of have one ear in the conversation I'm having and one ear on their conversation as Paul walks up and says the following to Rick. He says, "Pretty impressive that you charge XX on your discretionary accounts." And Rick says, "Why? What do you charge?" Paul says, "Well, I charge Y to Z, lower." Rick says, "Well, I charge X on all my accounts and you should too." And Paul says, "Well, yeah, but I do discretionary with funds and ETFs. You do individual securities." What? What was that? So I immediately break from the conversation. I'm like, "Excuse me, just 1 second." And so I turn and I say to Paul, "Do you think your advice is inferior to his? Do you think that you're worth less because of the vehicles that you choose to use in your advisory model?" Somehow Paul had it in his head that because the advice construct that he had built around rep as portfolio manager, utilizing ETFs and funds, was somehow inferior to essentially being a classic stock picker, a stock jockey, and building equity portfolios himself like Rick did. And so that led to a conversation around what the clients are really paying for. And it's not that, they're paying for the advice that they get. And so, which we'll touch on more, light bulb goes off. So I saw Paul several months later, and he came up and was very fond of the discussion and shared with me that he, in his client reviews that he'd been doing ever since then, had been raising his fees, and he had zero pushback, and he had a 100% success rate on raising fees to his clients. Now, that in of itself is not easy to do. That's a topic for another webinar, but it illustrates the power of having confidence and conviction and understanding what the value is that you actually bring to the table. So we need to explore that. Now, this dialogue, I've got X's and Y's on here, always leads to a question around, hey, what is the average fee out there? What do people actually charge today? So I always throw a couple slides in. This is the latest study based from Cerulli Associates that shows managed households around $750,000 on average. Their advice fee, depending on the program, will range, but it's in the range of, across the industry they studied, about 106 to 111 is the average advice fee. The programs obviously have other costs associated with them, which you see there. And more importantly, many of us were really concerned about fee compression over the past couple of years. You can see in the upper blue line that the average fee in the industry sort of leveled off. And so the pricing decline that people were really worried about, it's about leveled off. And you see that for households of $1 million, 1.5 million, according to Price Metrics and McKinsey, roughly around the same range, maybe a little bit higher than those that we just looked at for the 750 relationships. So let's come back to where we are, because the good news is that we set the cost of our services. Price is set by us, but our clients determine the value. And we really need these two to be aligned. And sometimes there's a disconnect. And so what do we do when there's a disconnect? Some of us have aha moments. Kathy in Washington uses the mirror technique. She says, I find in my experience that whenever I encounter a challenge in my business, I don't run to my colleagues. I don't run to the regional management or the home office or our CIO. I look in the mirror because I find usually the answer is staring me back in the face. So if there's a disconnect, I contend, and if you've got a disconnect in pricing, I contend that we need to put on a new set of lenses. We need to reframe our thinking. How do we do that? We do that with what I call the 4 C's of fee persuasion. In order for our message around pricing to our clients' prospects to be compelling, we have to have conviction in our voice. And to have conviction in our voice, we have to have clarity. It's essential that we have clarity on what it is that we do, what are the services that we offer for the fees that we charge. So if we've got clarity around what it is we do for the fees that we charge, then we could potentially have conviction in our voice and a compelling message. But there's a missing ingredient. In order to have clarity around those services, we also have to have supreme confidence that the overall approach that we are presenting to and recommending to the client and prospect is the best one for them. This comprehensive, client-focused, fee-based advisory relationship is the best construct, is the best solution for that client and prospect. So how do we get that? How do we solidify the confidence that the comprehensive, client-focused, fee-based advisory relationship is the right construct for our client? Well, we know from academic research, this was Cerulli research published in Fundfire a little around 2 years ago. We know that clients prefer it. So for clients who work with financial advisors, 87% prefer a fee-based construct over a commission-based construct. We know that. And maybe even instinctively, we know it's best for our clients, those of us that practice this. However, most of us would probably be challenged to name maybe 2 or 3 reasons why that's the case. What are the 2 or 3 benefits to our clients or advantages to our clients of a comprehensive, client-focused, fee-based advisory relationship? So I think it's important, in order to have that confidence, for us to revisit that. And if we were all together in a room, we would sort of take a pause and I would ask all of you and see who could come up with what, and we draw out all the ideas that all of you have. We don't really have the ability to do that right now. So what I'm going to do is share with you the collective responses from all the advisors from interaction like this we've done at in-person events on what are the potential advantages to your clients of a comprehensive, client-focused, fee-based advisory relationship. Number 1, trust. Why? Because instinctively, you know that when your practice, if you're on a fee-based advisory relationship, your practice succeeds or does better when your clients do better. You do worse when your clients do worse. It puts you on the same side of the table. It takes away any potential perception of a conflict of interest around being compensated when there's a transaction. Number 1, and that's huge because we know that that is the number 1 reason why, or number 1 attribute that clients seek when they select an advisor, and it's also material and often number 1 reason why we lose our clients when that trust is lost. Number 2, the comprehensive client-focused fee-based advisory relationship compels you to have a totally tailored program that meets that's designed to help your client meet their goals and objectives. So it's custom tailored. Number 3, simplification. how many folks do we see who have disparate statements from multiple custodians because they have multiple financial advisors and some stuff on their own? Statements are formatted differently. There's overlap in their investments. There's no tax coordination. There's no single comprehensive approach. But when you're operating as a client's primary strategic advisor and you're offering a comprehensive, client-focused, fee-based relationship, you pull all that together and you design a long-term plan, and all that gets cleaned up and the client's life is dramatically simplified. You have disciplined client services absolutely built into that model, access to institutional investment product, whether it's modeled through Sawtooth and SMAs, it's funds, ETFs, or other institutional investment management wrappers, and improved risk management. So what do I mean by that? 4, 5, 6. I'll tell you a story. So in my prior life, I traveled to Hawaii to visit with one of the large teams there, which was composed of 3 advisors. There was a lead advisor who had built a mostly commission-based practice that had been in the process of converting to advisory in a discretionary format, and 2 younger partners who were mostly advisory in their approach with clients. And I had metrics on their business that they didn't know that I had. And I was there to help them try and improve the efficiency and the client outcomes of their practice. And so we sat down and started talking about a lot of different things. And we got to a point where I asked them, how many mutual funds, how many unique and different mutual funds do you think you have across your entire book of business? The lead advisor looked at the 2 and said, well, I don't know, maybe 30, maybe 40, maybe, I don't know, maybe on the high end 50 mutual funds. 456. 456. And they aren't alone. It's not that uncommon. So she looked at her 2 younger advisors and said to them, I'm not monitoring 456 funds. Are you monitoring 456 funds? They looked at each other sort of in a moment of awkwardness. And then she turned and looked back at me and said, we tend to monitor much more closely the funds that we utilize in our advisory accounts. And that's my point. If you're using a comprehensive client-focused fee-based advisory relationship, you probably have a fairly tight list of investment strategies and products, active and passive, that you recommend for your clients. You probably have some efficiencies built around that, and you pay very close attention. You have high conviction in the strategies you recommend versus a disparate mix of different investments that have surfaced at various points in a client's life cycle that may have ended up in their various accounts. What else? What's another potential advantage for our clients of this construct? It levels the playing field, especially if you're in a discretionary construct, because gone are the days where you see an opportunity in the marketplace or a risk in the marketplace and you want to make a recommendation that clients modify their portfolios, and you pick up the phone and you start calling your largest clients first. Gone are the days where you can't even get to your mid-tier and smaller clients because time runs out and there's other things going on in the marketplace and we're all really busy. So the discretionary construct, in particular of a fee-based relationship, levels the playing field. All clients get access to your best ideas, your best advice at the same time. Lastly, and I think most importantly, this approach brings peace of mind. A high-quality, high-touch relationship based on trust and backed by a disciplined client service model breeds trust. In research by Vanguard, Morningstar, and Aon Hewitt, they found that in working with a financial advisor, there were not only financial rewards for clients, but they also concluded from their research there were 2 other things: confidence and security that clients got by working with all of you, which clearly has no less value than the financial rewards. They went on in the research to quantify the value that you all can bring by helping your clients, by protecting your clients, I should say, from themselves. So the value that you can bring by protecting your clients from themselves and helping guide them so they don't make the wrong decision at the wrong time, and help them make good investment decisions at the right time. The value of that, they call behavioral alpha, was quantified by the 3 different houses as anywhere from 1.8 to 3%. Now think about the advice fee that you charge today and how that might relate to the behavioral value, the behavioral alpha that you could and hopefully are bringing to your clients today, absolutely tremendous. Rob Arnott said it succinctly, I think, and beautifully. And he was quoted in wealthmanagement.com a couple of years ago. He said, if financial advisors accomplish just one thing, and that's to give clients the courage to stay the course, do not sell at the bottom, and not buy more of the hot sector at the top, they've accomplished something of great value, and they should be proud of it. Where does that leave us? So we think about, hopefully, that gives us confidence that the construct we're recommending, this comprehensive client-focused fee-based advisory relationship, is the best solution for our clients. We've got the confidence. So now we need clarity on what it is that we do for the fees that we charge. And we know that custom fees, we know that customized things have great value, but what is it we do for the fees that we charge? So if we were all together right now, I would probably ask you all to raise your hand. Any of you, not all of you, any of you that feel that you have a clear and compelling and memorized articulation of that. If you were in a prospect meeting, say, and the prospect said, okay, that's great. You know, you charge 1.25%. What do I get for that? How many of you feel that you have a clear, compelling, and memorized response to that question? And I find that most of us don't. And so we're gonna take some time on that. And it's gonna be a little unconventional, so I'm gonna need you to kind of hang in there with me. So if we were in person, what we would do is I would ask you to take out a piece of paper and a pen, a clean sheet, or I'd give you one, and we do a little exercise. We're going to do that now. So I know I can't stand it when people do this, when they're giving, when I'm attending a presentation at a conference and somebody actually makes me engage and it's interactive and I've got to do something and I have to work and I pull out my phone and I start checking my email. Don't do that, please, because there's a reason. Because I find so many of us go to great conferences where there's awesome content, or we listen in and follow along with webinars like this, and we take lots of notes, and then it sits and it accumulates in a pile, and we get busy, and clients call, and we're on to the next thing, and the markets are moving, and we never really go back and extract the top ideas and incorporate them into our practice. And we're going to do that with this exercise now. So please, everybody, take out a blank piece of paper, give you a second, and a pen or pencil. We're going to do an exercise. We're going to take 3 or 4 or 5 minutes. I will tell you when to stop. And this is what we're going to do. These are the things from past workshops that we've learned that you could be doing for your clients. Some of the things, if someone says, okay, 1.25%, what do I get for that? Some of the stuff you could be doing: written statement of investment objectives. I'm a huge fan of personalized investment policy statements for all investors. An asset allocation strategy is designed to meet their goals. Investment structure analysis. You're giving them advice on active versus passive. You're evaluating managers and products and investments out there in the industry, and you're doing research on them. You're selecting them. You're doing search and selection work. You have ongoing oversight and evaluation of all the investments that you recommend. You're tactically asset allocating for them. You're doing asset allocation rebalancing. You do performance measurement and reporting, custody, execution, but you also may do some of these things. You may understand and communicate risks and help them interpret markets. You advise on which investments to own in retirement, non-retirement accounts. You advise on how much clients need to save. You advise on different types of accounts: Roth, 529, IRA, different types of. You advise on the timing of Social Security benefits, taxes, when to buy and sell, ways to reduce taxable income. You educate on insurance, what types, how much. You discuss and manage longevity risk, long-term care, help them understand lease versus buy on an automobile. You advise on mortgage refinancing. You may be helping clients evaluate vacation properties. You may assist with commercial and personal financing and lending. All things advisors have told me that they can and may do. So all of this is very personalized to each of our practices, and it's not a list for all. But I've tried to build I've tried to build the slide you're never supposed to build, which is, I've already shown you 2 slides that have way too much text on them. You'll see that I wildly favor a graphic, and I like to tell a story around a graphic. But this is an exercise where we need to actually look at stuff. So I've consolidated those 2 lists onto 1 page, and I'm going to pause. I've read through it for all of you. So what you're going to do now is pause and think about what in your practice, what are those 3, 4, or 5 things that you do for your clients. If someone asks you, that's great, 1.25%, what do I get for that fee? What are those 3, 4, or 5 things that you do? And they don't even have to be on this list. It could be something like, I help my clients sleep well at night, which I steal from Merle, an advisor in Santa Barbara. But you have to tell me. So take your pencil out, and I'm going to pause and start thinking about, and then write down what are the 3, 4, or 5 things that you do that you would respond with. Let's try 1 more minute. Okay, go ahead and set your pencil down. I see we have a lot of people dialed in for today, so I really hope that each and every one of you played along and took the opportunity to think hard about what it is that you do for the fees that you charge your clients in your own words, because that is something that I hope you will take away from this and you will utilize. And here's what I'm going to recommend. Keep that on the top of your piles from today. If you've got access to a pair of scissors in your desk right now and some tape, awesome. Cut that out. Or if you need to rewrite it so you can cut it out, I would recommend just a little, 3x5 maybe size note page. Cut it out and tape it on the wall right next to your phone, tape it right next to your computer screen, put yourself in a position to be crystal clear with your prospects and clients on what you do next time this topic comes up. Don't rely on memory, and put yourself in a position where you can articulate a clear, compelling, and memorized message around what it is that you do for the fees that you charge, because that your response to that is so essential to building confidence in your client's eyes and building trust, that it isn't worth leaving it to chance based on our memory. If you didn't get a chance to finish, I highly encourage you to just take a few minutes after the webinar today to complete that, because I think it's probably, well, in my experience, it is so significantly underutilized and so powerful when properly utilized. So where does that leave us in building the 4 C's of fee persuasion? We have confidence now that the comprehensive, client-focused, fee-based advisory relationship is the best one for our client. We've developed clarity in our own words, clear, compelling, and memorized. We've developed clarity around what it is that we do for the fees that we charge. All right, what are those services that we offer? We understand, here's Tim Buckley of Vanguard CEO saying custom services are very difficult to quantify. We understand that. We custom tailor our solutions for our clients. It's not a commodity. It's not a product. It's not on the shelf. You custom tailor your solutions. There's tremendous value in that. It's very hard to quantify that. And each of you will have different answers to the exercise we just did, which is the illustration of how customized and tailored our work is for our clients, all designed to help them achieve their financial goals with success. So once you have confidence it's the right approach and clarity on what you do, that will give you conviction in your voice, which will make your message compelling. So what are some other best practices? We're going to pivot and talk about a few other best practices around the topic of fees and fee conversations. One in our experiences, one of the things we find is a lot of advisors hesitate to talk about fees. They wait for clients to ask. Now think about let's do role reversal. Think about any time you've had an engagement with some professional or some trade. Maybe it's a contractor, maybe it's it's an electrician or a plumber, or it's your car mechanic, or maybe it's an attorney or a CPA, whatever. And you go in and you explain your situation, they diagnose it, this is what we do, right? And then they start talking about all the things that we need and they're gonna do for us. And what are we thinking about the whole time? Oh, good grief, what is this gonna cost? Right? What is this gonna cost? And it distracts us and it prevents us from actually focusing on the message. And sometimes we miss a lot of details. Our clients do the same when we're overloading them with all the wonderful advice we're going to give them and the solutions we're going to provide for them. So how do we simplify this? I'm offering a construct here that I find helps detense the situation. And I would simply lead with fees. Don't wait, and say something like, hey, I consider the subject of fees a really important one. Now, I understand it's a big commitment by you to potentially work with us. So know that before you sign anything, we will discuss in detail how much you will pay and how I will be compensated. Something as simple as that can diffuse any anxiety that the client or prospect may be feeling and allow them to really focus on your message, which is so essential to connecting and building that trust. Now, I was sharing this lecture in a workshop in Texas a number of years ago now, and one of my former colleagues came up to me and she said, I don't understand, Patrick. Tell me why you're constantly using the word fees when you're talking about advisory pricing. She goes, clients, when we use the term fees, in my experience, clients think of, fees they pay at an ATM when we use the term fee. That's not what we want. That's not the image. Clients conjure up images of something completely different than what we're hoping. Why wouldn't you use the word cost? We're professionals. Our services have a cost. And that was a light bulb for me. So you've heard me say fees a lot because I hadn't got to this setup yet. But from this point forward, I won't use the word fees again, hopefully. But we'll talk about the cost of your services, not your fees. What are the best practices? When you're communicating, how do you communicate your cost proposition? How do you communicate your advisory pricing? There's three components I think are absolutely essential. And you can think back to my question about, imagine, or can you remember a time when you've been in dialogue with a contractor or a professional or somebody else? What are the elements that would lead to concern or distrust on your part? One of them is this, as if the explanation of their cost is really confusing. Keep it simple. Keep it simple. Two would be clarity. And this is where I believe that the words that you choose can have a powerful impact on the receptivity of your message or not. And I think it's incumbent on us to focus on this topic and choose and select, I should say it's the same thing, select terms that we're comfortable with, that we think present our message clearly, and then write it down and practice and practice. Just like what is it we do for the fees that we charge, articulating the actual fee, the actual cost of our service itself. Why would we leave that to chance, right? So it should be scripted and clear and compelling messaging. Lastly, consistent. You never know who knows who in our neighborhoods and in our towns. So the last thing you want to do is be defending one fee construct. So the best you can to try and keep your fees consistent. That's a best practice we found. 3 pillars of messaging your cost to your clients. And you do all that, then your pricing proposition will be easily replayed by your clients and easy for them to remember, so they don't wake up one morning in fear that they're being overcharged. One more a couple more best practices I'll share, and then we'll close out. I was at a conference attended by a number of Barron's top producers who were up on a panel. One of them was a top producer from Ameriprise in the Northeast, and she shared that in her experience, when it comes to pricing conversations, she runs into this. She runs into the classic, "What have you done for me lately?" And her team, in response to this, has developed what they call their client service scorecard. All throughout the year, anytime they do anything for a client, whether it's making an investment change, whether it's processing a distribution check, whether it's researching something, reprinting a statement, or electronically delivering, whatever they do, anytime the client calls with something or they do something for their client, they record it on a client service scorecard. And it accumulates throughout the year. And the team has sharing on their CRM so that they all can access this and add anything to any client's client service scorecard. And then when they do sit down with their clients at the annual review or semi-annual review, whatever your process is, they pull out their client service scorecard. And it's the first thing they do. Let's revisit what's happened since we last met. And then they run through all the things that they've done for their clients. Because guess what? They find clients forget. Clients don't remember all the stuff you're doing for them. And all that erodes your value proposition and their belief that they're actually getting value for the cost of your services. Another best practice, this comes from Jim in Utah, which is putting the cost conversation and the cost itself of your services in more relatable terms. Why do we always talk about 1.25 or 1.1 or 1%? Jim says, your client sees the cost quarterly, so explain it to him quarterly. He goes on to explain what he charges, 0.31% of the dollars under management. It's going to come out every quarter and it'll be on your 1099. So what is 0.31% every quarter? Give or take a little rounding, it's around 1.25%, right? 1.25%. So put it in more relatable terms that clients can understand. This comes from Dave in Newport Beach. He says, hey, all it took was one time for a $4.4 million client to become a $5 million client when he saw my cost schedule with a $5 million tier after lying to me for years that 4.4 million was all that he had. So this is a punctuation mark on the value of having a reduced cost level at an increased asset tier that clients can aspire to, and how that helped him gain additional assets from his client. So with that, sometimes I think we find or we fear that clients might push back on the cost of our services, or prospects might push back. And we want to be prepared for when they do. These are some of the ways that top advisors at various conferences on this topic and in sessions on this topic have shared they deal with it. Everybody's different. One top advisor says, look, I just look at it like clients value trust more than discounts. It's on me to build the trust with them. Another who came from the Northeast and isn't necessarily everyone's style, always responds by saying, hey, I won't be offended if you choose to work with someone else who will charge you less. If you want to trust your retirement to the lowest cost provider, that's okay. So that's maybe not an approach for everyone, but I will share with you in closing, before questions, I will share with you a dialogue on this topic that was published. This was published in Funfire by Stephanie Bogan, who's CEO of a practice management firm. She says, your brain, and specifically your limbic system, is hardwired for survival rather than success. So when you're confronted with a challenging request, our brains go on the defensive and remove us from the conflict zone as quickly as possible. The problem is we've limited ourselves and our practices in the process. For example, how often have you found yourself in a meeting with a prospect explaining how you can help, and the prospect asks for a discount on the fees? The prospect is saying, I want what you offer. I just don't value it the way that you do. Well, would you please still work with me? That's what they're really saying. What if instead of simply answering yes or no, you instead reframe the conversation and say, that's a question we get from time to time. Over the years, we've learned that our fees aren't the least or most expensive out there. We are committed to adding immense value to our clients, though. And doing this requires that we have the people and the resources we need to deliver. Our fees are set based on professional norms, the cost of running a successful business, and ensuring that we're rewarded fairly for the value that we provide. Fees aren't something we compromise, just as we would never ask you to compromise the value that we deliver for you. If our fees don't fit with your needs, we completely understand. That said, we'd love to work with you if you're ready to move forward. Thank you for your time and attention, Scott. I'll turn it to you to see if any questions have come in that we could share some insights around, hopefully.
We did get a few questions. This one I think is a great one. It's one you mentioned at the end. You mentioned the 3 pillars of cost, messaging cost. And, to me, that sounded kind of like the second elevator speech you probably needed to have in your pocket. Can you give us an example of that?
Yeah, thanks, Scott, and thank you, whoever submitted that. I can give you an example, and I'll take you to Long Beach, California, where there's a Barron's Top team that I've done a lot of work with over the decades, and I will use as the example here. And they'll share that in prospect meetings, in engagements with prospects, they always come to a place where they ask for statements. Let me take a look at everything that you have, and they spend time aggregating the client's investments so they can come back with some thoughtful recommendations and some good insights. They also do a cost analysis, and then they will sit down in their second or third meeting with the prospect and ask them, what do you think you're paying your current advisor? And what do you think most prospects or clients are going to say? I'm not sure. I think whatever. And that's when the team will say, well, here's what you're paying. We calculate you're paying this amount on your equity portfolios, your stock portfolios, and you're paying this amount down here on your bond portfolios. Let me ask you a question. Let's imagine the markets are moving, the economies are moving globally, and the chief strategist at your advisor's firm thinks that all clients should take some risk off, or should put risk on the table, and they should maybe take 10% from fixed income and put it into equities. And let's imagine that your advisor agrees, and they pick up the phone and they call you and they make that recommendation to you to take 10% out of your fixed income and put it in equities. What are the economic implications to you of taking that advice? Now, usually there's a pause, Scott, and clients say, well, my fees are going to go up. Exactly. And that's where this team says, we don't do it that way. We are professionals, and our services cost X. We provide a comprehensive, tailored financial solution for our clients that's designed to help them achieve their retirement goals. And the fee is expressed as a percentage of their portfolio, and it's flat, irrespective of whether the clients have more or less in bonds versus stocks or different types of investment vehicles. That way, when the day comes, when we do call you and we make the recommendation that you should make a change in your portfolio, you instinctively know that the only reason we're making that recommendation is because we believe it's in your best interest, and you never have to question the objectivity of our advice.
That's powerful.
Hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah. One other question here. How do you profitably set your fee but still remain competitive? You know, the old trade-off.
Yeah, I think actually what's interesting about the question, Scott, the profitability of the relationship, I think, is a really valuable exercise for all of us to undertake. And I think it's a great idea. I find that the vast majority of the advisors and teams out there don't take the time to actually do a P&L on their business and try and figure out what the profitability of client relationships are. But I highly encourage all of us to do that. So I love the angle behind the question. I would say that the way that I would think about that is in terms of your personal value, because how to set your own fee or what level your fee, the cost of your services fee at. I just got dinged. If I were at home, I'd have to give a quarter to my son for using a word I wasn't supposed to use. But I think it's a really personal decision selecting the cost of your own services. I've shared with you what the industry averages are. And so I think all of us need to kind of reflect on, look around the industry, look around your colleagues, look around at the others at industry conferences, at your firm. If you're at a bigger firm where there's lots of other advisors you compare to, or at industry conferences like IWI and others, Barron's, and think to yourself, do you think that you're average? Or do you think you're above average? If you assessed your own experience, your education, your credentials, your personal and professional experiences, do you think you're average or above average, and set your pricing accordingly, and then work on the messaging around it so it's clear, compelling, and memorized. Thanks, Scott.
Great. Well, we're getting on the top of the hour here, so we will get back to everyone else who submitted a question, and we'll answer those directly. Thank you again, Patrick.
My pleasure.
Appreciate you defining a new swear word for us, another F word. I'm sure everybody enjoyed your insights as much as I did. As a reminder, if you want to learn more about Aristotle Capital Management, you can go to their website at aristotlecap.com. Or if you've already signed up to partner with Sawtooth, you can find information about Aristotle and all the strategies and models available on our platform in the Research Center contained within the Spark Advisor portal. I want to remind everyone that we're going to be forwarding a link to this presentation within 24 hours. So if you joined us late, you'll have an opportunity to watch the portions that you've missed. I'll close by thanking each of you for joining us for this presentation. We know that your time is valuable, and I appreciate that you shared the last hour with us. Hopefully, we will all find a way to partner together and deliver some exceptional client solutions. Make it a great day.